Know your strengths and understand what you're doing. But exactly to your point, if you're like, hey, I hate doing this, I struggle with it, I'm competent enough to know what it should look like. And when you're at that point, get rid of it. Get that off your plate and hire that out, whether it's like a virtual assistant or somebody in-house, or if you have a partner, like whatever, but like stop doing the shit that you hate and that you suck at. Just be good enough to understand like what right looks like. And then, you know, if you don't, then have a lawyer or somebody else on board that can like look over contracts or whatever, you're like a complicated contract.
This is the Be More Show for agents, where you'll find real talk, and ambition. We're here to build real businesses and be more than your average agent. We want to know what killers are actually doing within their businesses, the reality of it, all tactical, no fluff. So we're here to find out. Please share and enjoy.
Hello, Dan Krupa in the house. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you here today, the first non-pillar to be interviewed on the Be More Show for agents. And how I know you, I'm going to start out with just a little story. So Dave Perret, you also know Dave Perret, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's how we were connected. Yeah, I think you hit him up and was like, do you have an agent outside of Fort Bragg? And he said, talk to Shelby. And I was like, oh, this is a lead from Dave Perret, who is a buddy of mine. So I'm going to not f it up. We're going to do great. And it closed. And you were like, Shelby, you're the best agent I've ever referred anyone to in my life. Is that what happened?
Absolutely. Spot on. That's exactly what I said.
It was, yeah, he did not say that, but I am glad that it closed, and I'm glad that we're still friends through all of it. And yeah, that's how I know you. And Allie, you don't know him for huh?
I don't know him for I met him 1 minute ago before we started recording.
But
I'm excited to get to know you, Dan.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Dan, we start off each show. We kick it off with a show moment to get a feel for who you are. So can you share with us an embarrassing show moment, ideally related to real estate or business, but not required? What you got?
Okay. So this was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I have a new client. He's in the Marines. He's deployed. He wants to start buying in Kansas City. So we get this great house under contract. It's an okay deal. It's not fantastic, but we have all the numbers penciled out. Everything looks good. And we're going to have inspections on like Tuesday. So it's Monday-ish, right? So I have a new assistant. She had worked for an acquisition company in Kansas City, Missouri. Supposedly she was amazing. She knows everything. So I give her the checklist, right? And I'm like, hey, go out, just look this thing over, make sure there's no like latent defects that weren't disclosed, anything that would like torpedo this deal before we get out there tomorrow, and spend like $600 on inspections and then find out this thing sucks. So she's like, okay, yeah, it's great, blah, blah, blah. So I just had this weird feeling that night. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to go out there myself, just get eyes on. Because I had done a couple with her previously, but this was like her first solo one. But she was like adamant. She's like, you don't need to go. I've got it. I know what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay. So whatever. I get there and I take like a quick look inside and everything's looking good. And I decide to walk around the back. And the house is built on this like little cinder block crawl space. And if you guys know anything about, if a cinder block crawl space goes, it's a show, right? Because if it's the ground, it's a pain. If it's just the foundation, you have to like jack up the house and rebuild it and lower it. When you do that, you like crack all like the sheetrock and stuff. So anyways, there's this like piece of plywood, like 3 inches off the ground on like the side of the house. So I'm like, okay, weird. You can't see it. So I kick it out of the way. And there's like a 3-foot hole in this foundation, just like gaping hole. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So like new client, inspections the next day, not disclosed. Like, yeah, just an absolute show. So needless to say, I was scrambling all night, reworking numbers, on the phone with the agent. So embarrassing, because at that point, like I was a broker and she's working for me and I have like 7 agents. And like, I'm always preaching like, you need to verify, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then, I just look like a giant. So we did get it all worked out though. We got the cost covered, but man, it was so embarrassing and a lot of lessons learned from that one little mistake there.
Dude.
Did that client, was that client a repeat client?
Yes,
like,
Tony stayed.
No.
No, Tony stayed. He's awesome. He's bought like 3 more properties and we manage all of them for him. he was not impressed with the showing assistant at all, but I didn't blame her. I took ownership of it.
Ownership. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to, right? I'm not going to be like, well, I mean, in the end, it was my fault. But no, we got it worked out. We actually got like 10 grand more off the deal for him. And the repair was only like
Nice.
5. So he actually came out even farther ahead. So he was super happy about it. So it all worked out in the end. But, that night, really, really embarrassing. And he's on the other side of the world. He was in like the Philippines or something on like a training exercise. I'm trying to get a hold of him at like 6 a.m. to be like, hey, dude, so anyways, yep, that's my moment. Yep.
Yeah.
God,
and you
survived.
You got it figured out. You made it work. And then you made it work again.
Yes. Yep.
Hell yeah. So Dan, take us to a little bit. I want to get to know you a little bit before real estate. So before real estate, up until like where you are now as an agent. Can you give me a brief summary?
So hard to condense. Let's condense like many years into one. Yeah. Ready to go.
Yeah. So starting at birth. No, I'm just kidding. I was in the military. Actually for 13 years, I went to college and then I did ROTC. And after that, I went straight into the military and I did that for 13 years and I loved it. And, I was just going to be one of those guys. I was doing really well. And then I got injured and it got like progressively worse and worse and worse. And, I had the decision, either I could change jobs, or I could get medically retired. And I was like, hey, I'm out of here. My oldest son had just been born. And I really lucked out. I was supposed to be on this training exercise. And luckily, the cadre in charge were like, hey, stay back, don't go. My wife was like, I think 3 weeks out. And Mason was born like 3 weeks early. And if I had been there, I would have missed his birth. And then his first 4 months, I was gone almost continuously in that first 4 months. So I was over the military. I was done, and I was like, no, I want out. So, I did that. I got out. And then it was weird, when you've been in for a long time, you get to like pick where you want to go and what you want to do. And I wasn't really sure, but I had bought a couple of houses out near Seattle, Washington State. And one of them, as I'm like going through the medical retirement process, I went out and in 10 days, literally worked like sun up to sundown, like 16 hours a day, and like flipped this house by hand with a little bit of help, and made like $20,000 when we sold it. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, sign me up. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, I loved it. I loved the process. I didn't know anything. Yeah, and I thought I knew real estate. Thought I knew real estate because
oh my God, we all
houses.
Do.
Yeah, I thought I'm so smart. I bought 2 houses.
Right.
No, I didn't know anything, right? And so like that started the journey. So then it was like, okay, well, where are we gonna set up shop? Like, where? Because I knew I wanted to run my own business. I was done being told like where to go and what to do and all that jazz. So I was like, hey, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to be an agent. So we ended up back in Kansas City, in this like the northern part of Kansas City, Missouri, which I never thought I'd ever live in. But there we were, and we started our business. And so like I said, a focus was initially to like, hey, just flip houses. But I really fell in love with like the whole real estate transaction side of it. Like I really did. So we set up shop in Kansas City, Missouri. And things, honestly, they just kind of snowball. I really think, and I won't go back on it anymore, but, the military experience was really helpful for me. Like, helped me to focus. And I knew I had to be really great at my fundamentals. You see so many agents that are they're so scatterbrained and they're chasing like every shiny object. And so I like really locked in on like, hey, like how, like the process of flipping a house. And through that natural progression, I started to branch off, and then I started to get really good at like negotiating. I started reading like books on it. I started to understand like what to look for, like how to really comp your numbers, how to understand like where our area is going to, like understand the path of progress and what your city's doing and zoning ordinances and like all this crazy stuff that I never would have considered or care about before came in. And then it's just this, like I said, this natural progression of becoming an agent and then a broker kind of came about because you see how many agents suck. They're just there for the money. They don't.
So many.
Yes. And they don't work on their craft. Like they don't focus on it. Like they just want to make that easy dollar, like show up, smile, like look pretty, like men and women, and just get paid. And like, that's not what good agents do. Like we solve problems, and you need to understand all parts of the equation. And so like, I'm that weirdo where I'm like, I want to understand the lending side. I want to understand the appraisal side. I want to understand like how all these things fit together so that I can help the most clients possible. So I went into this like small niche of helping investors find properties that needed to be fully renovated. And so that's where I made my mark, right? I started getting into like just tracking down these houses that nobody else wanted, just other investors were chasing. And then that's the clientele I was appealing to. And then out of that, clients started coming to me and being like, hey, my property management sucks. And I had that when I was in the military. I could not stand my property management. So then we organically, started property management. And then I went from being a broker in Missouri to then adding Kansas because we were right on the border. And so, here we are 6 years later, we've, flipped 150 houses. I've done like 300 transactions. I had 7 agents for a while. I'm a broker in Arizona now. We're branching out. I live in Arizona now. We're branching out down here. We just leased up our first condo in Scottsdale, Arizona. So that's where we're at right now. And like our rental portfolio that we manage is 60 properties. And I've kind of done a little bit of everything. Like I said, mostly it's residential income properties that I've done, but I've done land deals and new builds, and I've kind of done it all, and short sales and all that. But I like to stay in my little niche, right? Because I know that's what I'm good at. I'm really great at that, and so I try to focus on that. But I'll help people.
Stay in your
I'm like
as he talks about 100 niches.
So my question was, where did you learn all this? So like you've learned a lot and you've done a lot, and it condensed. So, some people like learn a little bit from their firm. And I know that you're doing a lot of it on your own and taking the initiative, but like, I guess, did you have any help or was it all self-driven?
So I did about almost a year of just like self-study before I jumped into it. But honestly, I didn't learn that much. Like I listened to a ton of podcasts and I read books and whatnot. And the area I honestly learned the most was just doing it. Not my first broker is such a nice guy, but like zero oversight. Like now that I'm a broker, like it scares me how little oversight like this dude gave me. So luckily I met some other agents and they were phenomenal. And they were like, hey, like you have to like check this, or like you need to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I started meeting and networking with other guys that were around my level or slightly above who were flipping. And I learned a little from there, but it was just a ton of trial and error. Like I'm a huge, like get into what you're going to do and like do it. And like mentors can help and they're phenomenal and they can shave like years off, but you can also just grind like 16 hours a day for like 2 years straight. And you can be light years ahead of people that started, 2-3 years in front of you that just do it part-time. So,
I love that so much. It's like that whole thing about like reps over time is a success. But if you can condense time, like, holy shit, there's a lot you can do if you just like bust your ass. So, yeah. Got it.
And like, unfortunately, like I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but that's what I did for the first 2 years. Like I worked 7 days a week. I didn't take vacations. I mean, I worked like literally nonstop. I was like at the houses working. And then at night I was doing like the paperwork on the agent side and like bookkeeping, like thank God now, like I've hired that stuff out. And at the time we had just had our youngest son when I started and my oldest was like 17 months. So like it was a total those first couple of years, but like, we got through it. My wife's in it now. She's amazing on like the rental side. Like she handles all of that. I'm just kind of like the big guns that comes in, like, when we have like a problem person or we're doing an eviction or have to deal with the lawyers, like that's my area. And then I take care of like all the flip stuff and all that stuff on the other side of the house and all the agent stuff I take care of.
With everything that you're doing, you have to, that's like enough for a lot of people, right? So I would love to talk about delegating and hiring out. Like when was your first hire? What was it for what business? Like all the way up until how many people, do you have that are working for you now?
Yeah. So it kind of grew rapidly. I would say it was probably about like 6 months in, I started to make like my first full-time hires for the company. I had like contractors, but I started to bring guys on to like be project managers to help me. And then to do small stuff. Like I hired a guy away from Home Depot that would do all of our like lawn stuff and clean up and run to Home Depot and like grab stuff. And so, right. And then as the business built out by like maybe a year and a half in, now we had like an assistant, we had like an admin person there. We just started bringing in more and more people. I think we got up to, we had 6 full and part-time employees at one point on the property management and on the flipping side, because we were doing 40 houses a year and we were managing all these rentals, and I was doing the agent thing, and I had 7 agents, right? So I kind of needed I needed people in each area to kind of help out. Exactly what you're talking about, right? That delegate, because you have to focus on like the most important thing when you have that much stuff going on, and be like, hey, all this like small tiddlywink shit, like I'm going to push off to you and I'll check it, but like you do all the grunt work and then send it back up to me and I'll just put eyes on it and be like, yeah, this looks good. Like, let's keep moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. It seems like a lot. I feel the agents that I talk to sometimes just take too long to make that hire. They're like, no, I want to do it myself. You know, I am my own business owner, so I want to make sure that I review all the paperwork, and well, as you should, but just, you know, other examples where they're like, you know, let me just like, no, I want to do it myself first and make sure I know how to do it. And then I'll hire out. I'm like, no, like doing it 10, even 15 times, you're not going to be a professional. So just hire it out to someone that only ever does that and can do it better than you. And that's how you're going to scale. So yeah, I love that. I love that you just went with that.
Yeah, and, you know your strengths and understand what you're doing. But exactly to your point, if you're like, hey, I hate doing this, I struggle with it, I'm competent enough to know what it should look like. And when you're at that point, get rid of it. Get that off your plate and hire that out to whether it's like a virtual assistant or somebody in-house, or if you have a partner, like whatever. But like, stop doing the shit that you hate and that you suck at. Just be good enough to understand like what right looks like. And then, you know, if you don't, then have a lawyer or somebody else on board that can like look over contracts or whatever, you know, like a complicated contract to make sure you're not getting yourself in trouble. But yeah, it's crazy how many people just like spin their wheels and are like, oh, I have to be the best at everything. You're like, no, you don't. That's crazy. That's not, if you run your own business or you want to be like a killer agent, you do not be the best at everything.
We love your DMs on Instagram, and as long as you don't sound like a bot or aren't sharing your overnight crypto success, hit us up on Instagram. Let's be friends. We're at The Shelby Show and at Allie the Agent.
The different personality types too, for me, it's like normally the people who are out there, like you said, like the muscle behind it, like kicking in doors, like they're not the type that like to slow down and like input small details into contract. You know what I mean? It's just 2 different personality types. So like doubling down on your strengths and leveraging out your weaknesses is so powerful. And yeah, I feel that a lot from you. But okay, so at this point, we have a little bit of a feel for your backgrounds and a little bit of feel for like what you've done across the board. When you look back on the agent portion of your business, so I know that you were a broker, you oversaw 7 different agents. That's a whole conversation in itself that I want to dig into. But across the board between yourself and working with those agents, like what is the one piece of the puzzle that you feel like is really systematized, automated, that has, you know, impacted your business?
So I think for the agents that I saw that were successful and really helped us was, you know, having checklists to go through everything. 1, it keeps you out of trouble. And 2, it speeds everything up, and then it lets you streamline that. Like we talked about, if you do have like a TC, right, transaction coordinator, or if you hire that out to like a VA or whatever, having just things that like make it very, very simple and fast, where you're like, okay, did I get steps like 1 through like 138? Like and to me, anytime I have to do something more than twice, like that's it. I'm building a template. Like it's stupid. If you know you're going to consistently do something, just automate that thing, right? Or make it a template. Make it like as easy as possible so that you're not expending mental energy on that thing. You can focus on the other things that happen. And then, like I said, it's really easy to hand that thing off to somebody else and be like, check this. Just make sure this is all done right. And after you check it, send it to me and I'll check it to make sure that when you checked it, we got it all right.
Love it. Both of us are like obsessed with checklists and systems processes. So as you were, okay, like taking this, we got the big picture, how you did it, how you developed, you know, checklists for everything. So you would do it twice and you would document your process. Would you be the one to continue refining it, or would you pass it off to your leverage and have them edit it further? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, no, I love that question, because so many people just build something right and then it's done. It's like, oh, it's the Bible. We're never going to touch this. Like it's in stone. It can't be changed. And so like a huge thing is like, yeah, I would initially take a stab at it. Then anybody else who was working on it, I'd be like, hey, take this, add to it anything you think is valuable, anything that I'm missing, like as we're going along. Like this is a living document. Like let's change it. And then every time, you know, Yeah, and then we had our quarterly, right? We had our quarterly meetings, like where we came together. There was like four of us. We'd come together. It was like the big four, and we review. And during those, we would always pick out at least two of those documents every quarter, and then yearly we would review everything and be like, okay, hey, like what is redundant? What is no longer applicable? Like what can we streamline out of this thing? And we would literally set a day aside to review all those documents and be like, hey, are we all so good? Are we missing anything? Does this integrate seamlessly with like your portion, right? Because when you're like buying a house and renovating it all and then it's passing it off on the like listing side to sell, like there's a lot of like balls and things that can get dropped, so like, yeah, we just found that super helpful. Just come back to it, keep looking at it, keep making it better.
Where are you keeping these checklists?
That was my question too, Allie.
So I love like the Google business on Google Drive, right? So it's like that way, like everything is shared, right? It's all shared folders across everything. And then like, I would have some folders that would be like, hey, this is just for my wife and I, like, we're just going to see this. Or like, hey, if the project manager is working on this and you need this on the acquisition side, like we can share across this. So that's where we had everything. And I love that because you can just go out on your phone and pull it up real fast and just like enter it, right? Like, hey, copy it super quick, fill it out while you're there. We all have eyes on it. It's simple. I know a lot of people do a lot of different things. For us, it was really simple and easy because like we gave out Google phones to everybody. So like that's what we used in the business. And everything just integrated into it super. It was all easy. And so that's how we rolled. It's just using a bunch of Google Docs and Google Worksheets.
What kind of backup would you have? Because giving access to everyone, especially new agents, I'm sure that sometimes people will accidentally delete something or take some portion off of the checklist. Did you ever have like run into that, or how did you solve that?
No. Because like I said, yeah, we would have, right? Because you can have those share folders and you can also have, you're granting access to who can see it and then what level they have. Is it a view only? Can you copy and work it? And if it is something that somebody could like copy and actually work on, we always had originals someplace that like could not be touched. Because that does happen, right? Somebody goes in and they screw up the template. They don't make a copy of it. And you're like, you jabroni. All right, that's okay. Like, we'll just pull it back down from this folder and stick it back in, go off of that. But it's such a great point. Like have those backups so that when inevitably somebody messes it up, you can just go back to it and put it back.
With your team, did you did your team primarily also work with flips? Like, was that like sorry, by team, I mean your firm. Like you guys were the flipping people.
So like our thing, like our kind of like saying was we're a brokerage for investors by investors. And that's who we cater to. We're a small boutique brokerage that's who we singled out. Is, hey, we're looking for investors that want to buy here and hold, not so much flip, because I think anyone who's like long distance and doesn't understand the area trying to flip a house is insane. That's just my own 2 cents. So, that's who we worked. That's who we went after. And like, yeah, of course, all of my agents would have that like, hey, I'm going to help my sister or my friend or whatever. Cool. We'll work through that. But that wasn't our primary focus. We were after helping investors.
Okay. That totally helps. Because what I was thinking is an issue that we ran into, back in the day when we were working with investors. There's a million different types of investing. And then you're also working with retail. And so my follow-on question was, did you have a checklist for each track? Agent meets flipper, agent meets burr, agent meets retail, different checklists.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Or no.
Yes, no, we absolutely did. And then we also had we built different, I don't know if you guys use Dotloop, like I'm a Dotloop guy, and we had different templates built for each loop, right? If it was an investor purchase, like there was one loop, it was a residential purchase, there was a different template loop that they used, and all the documents were already preloaded into there. So we just try to make it like as simple for the agents as possible. And be like, okay, hey, just follow this and you can't screw it up. Because it's so hard when you're a new agent trying to like remember all the different things you're supposed to do. And you're so concerned about like pleasing your clients and not messing this up and not missing this step. And it's like, hey, like let's take like let's take that like burden off of them and put it on us, and we'll just help you out here.
Totally. And did they follow them? Because the reason I'm asking too is because you did it for 2 years and then you made the choice to go back as a solo agent. So I'd love to, unless Allie, do you have anything else on the checklist before we ask this question?
Well, my question would be for later on for the agent gold mine. We asked that all the guests provide a golden nugget to share with everyone who wants access to it. So I presume, unless tell me if I'm in the wrong, that this golden nugget will be a checklist. And if so,
I actually gave two. Yeah, I gave two. I gave a residential checklist, and then I gave a pre-formatted email I use for all of my potential agents here in Kansas City. Like when I get a new lead, boom, this thing goes out. It has links, it has attachments. Like it's just an automatic, like, here you go, and gives them enough like information to like really look into and be like, oh, okay, like this guy's legit. He knows what he's talking about. Yes, I need to think through X, Y, and Z before we have like a follow-up phone call, because I don't want to waste their time and I don't want anybody wasting my time, because that's the most valuable thing I have. But honestly, like as a broker, it's really, really hard unless your agents are like rockstar investors too, because there has to be so much like hand-holding when you're helping investors. Like if they don't really understand like their numbers and the process and they don't get it themselves, like you really can't do it. So honestly, it just came to this point where I was like, this is so stupid. Like the amount of money, like I love to give back and help people. Like I truly do. Like I have a heart for like mentoring, all sorts of people. But the amount of time and energy I was spending, I was like, this is so dumb. Like I could just streamline and like just do like one more flip a year and like make the same amount of money, but literally free up like hundreds of hours in a year. So I was like, okay, I'm done. And then we moved down to Phoenix about 2.5 years ago. And like that was like the forcing function where I was like, hey, I love you guys, but like this is a great broker. Go to him. She's a great broker. Go to her. Like good luck. Like I'm always here. I had already made like I called it like Krupa University. I had all these like videos I made for them, and I had put all this information together, and they still have access to all that stuff, which is great. So they can still continue their own like investing and stuff. But like to me, it was too hard. Like I could see working with just residential agents. That would be great. That would be fine. If that was like your passion in life, it's not for me. But yeah, the investor agents, like I said, you really have to know your stuff to work with investors and not have to have your hand held the whole time.
Okay. So at this point, you shut down the firm, but you still have, I bet you've built a name for yourself. You at one point had enough leads to give all of these 7 agents. So you probably have more business, more investors than you're able to work with. So how does that work? Do you refer them? Do you have like a waiting list?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I kind of made this pivot like 2.5 years ago where I went from, I would say maybe like competency was kind of in that systems, right? The checklist, to really now like leveraging people that I know. And that I made this huge transition. And it's been so freeing because now I have all this time. I can literally work from home. I can take my family, on vacation whenever we want. I can literally like work out of our trailer if I want to on vacation. I can have a camper. Like it's so awesome. And so I don't know if I want to, I don't want to bore you guys and get like too much into detail to that, but that is how I've done it. I had to make this huge pivot where I went from systems to people and networking. And that's become the new focus, just leveraging other people to do all the things I used to go do myself or send a full-time employee to go do.
Nice. And then backing up a little bit, how would you find all these clients to begin with?
So for me, Bigger Pockets has just been an absolute gold mine. I mean, it's great. And I don't go on there and like, to me, it's like if you're on there and trying to be braggadocious and like toot your own horn, like you just sound stupid. Like just go on there and give back. And then just kind of naturally out of that, people will start coming to you and be like, hey, like I have this question, like, what do you think? When you help people, it is amazing how when you're just giving back and you're not expecting anything in return, like people just start like flocking to you and being like, oh, hey, this is awesome. Can you help me with this? I'm looking for this. Would you consider being my agent? And you're like, yeah, sure, I can do that. So right now I don't take on too many agents or too many new clients. Like I say, I try to cap it at a certain number. If I do have some, I've got a few agents who I absolutely love and I just refer them out into the area. We do like a standard referral fee. Shelby, as you know, like that's one of the things I did for you. That's the other way I'll leverage people is like because I was in the military for a long time and know guys moving all around all the time. They'll hit me up all the time. Hey, I'm thinking about listing my house. I'm thinking about buying a house. Can you help me? Yeah. Okay. Where? All right. Great. Let me talk to people in the network and like, let's find you an awesome agent. Let's understand what your fees are going to be and what they bring, like what's part of their listing package if they're going to list or you're going to be a buyer, like how many deals have they done and what does it look like, get that information for them and then just send them over to somebody who, after you like vet, you're like, hey, I trust it, and just do that referral.
Do you pay for the leads and sign up for that program with Bigger Pockets, or did you get those clients just organically posting, helping people?
Yeah, just organically. And I'm really glad you brought this up, because I think a lot of people way overthink this. Like, if I'm in like lead generation mode, it is 10 minutes a day max. Like, it's right. It's like zero inbox kind of a thing. Like, I'm in, I'm out. Like, it's what's my biggest bang for my buck. Like, hey, I'm going to respond to anybody that asks me a question. I'm going to click through. If I see something, like, I'm going to find something that's really relevant. I'm going to share some pertinent like information, maybe one or two posts I'm going to respond to, and then boom, I'm out for the day. Like, I'm not living on there. It's not up the whole time. I'm not like waiting for someone to like message me and be like, oh my God, I have to respond back like right away. Like, no. Like, I've just found like going in 10 minutes a day, giving some really good content in that 10-minute, like make it matter for 10 minutes and then get out of there. And then like people just start coming. Like they're just, your inbox just starts filling up with people being like, hey, I love this. Like, do you have any recommendations on this? Or do you know a person for this? Or how would you handle this? Right. And then when you start having those like side things, you start like, yeah, of course I have like a roofer I can share, like do this, but make sure, if you're in like Liberty, don't forget, like they have to inspect after like the ice and water sheet goes down before they put the shingles on to make sure you get both parts of it. And then people are like, oh my God, you're amazing.
I love you so much.
Yeah. And then
take my money.
Yeah. And then just like, it just naturally, and like I said, I'm not doing it for any benefit of myself. I'm just, when people understand that, like, one, you're willing to help them, and two, you're proficient in what you do, it just naturally comes. You don't have to do anything else. Just know your job, be good at it, and give back, and people will just show up, man. It's simple as that.
I totally agree with that. And the hard part is like, it's the new agents who are like, I need to lead gen or whatever, but they don't have any reps. They have no experience. They have no real value to give.
Yes.
So it's, and I guess that's the benefit of being a personally investing and personally doing your own deals, because you have lived it. You've experienced it. You know for a fact because you were the person who you were testing it on. So that is, yeah.
I mean, how many times you see on Bigger Pockets when someone's like, oh, does anybody know an agent here? And you have like 18 people that are like, ooh, pick me. And then the people that have actually done their are like, hey, great, you're looking for an agent, but make sure you ask like these pertinent things about the agent before you pick one. And then they're like, ooh, right. And those people drop out because they, it's yeah. It's as simple as that. Like you said, like it just boggles my mind. Like, get good at what you do and then go out and try to help people. But before that, like, don't try to cut the line and be like, oh, I know how to handle all these deals when you can barely write a contract and you've done like, one sale and one purchase for like your sister and your best friend. Like, that doesn't help anybody.
What is your process for tracking referrals? Do you have a virtual assistant who does like the referral agreement and then like tracks it, or are you tracking it? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I'll have a virtual assistant like type it all up. I personally like to like keep my finger on the pulse of kind of what's going on. Like I said, I'm in a different place now than I was like kind of years ago when I had to generate a ton of like active income. We have a lot more passive income now coming in. So now because of that, like I said, I like to kind of just personally be involved and check in on things and be like, hey, where are we at? Can you CC me in on this? Can you just add me to whatever's, going on? And even if I just have a friend, I just had a really good buddy. It's kind of a sad story, but yeah, he got a grant. He had to buy a house because of some disabilities from the military down in Florida. And I just, I asked the agent and the lender, hey, just keep me tied in on everything. And I do the same thing with referrals. Like, hey, just, throw me on the CC and I'll just be that fly on the wall, kind of watching what's going on. If there's anything I can do to help, like I'm here, I'll jump in and do whatever I can add.
Have you ever been in a group chat? Like
make it a group
chat. Yeah. Whenever you give out a referral.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it just depends like how well I know the person and who that is. But yeah, that's pretty standard. Like I'll have my buddy and their agent and me all on the same text and be like, anytime you send them anything, just include me so I can see like what this person's saying back to you and whether like that's legit or if they're just being lazy or not.
Yeah. there's like different schools of thought on that, right? Like when you're sending a referral to another agent, whether or not that agent even wants to be in a group chat with the originating agent. But that was like advice that I received early on, and I love it. Like I really thought that I was sending like some clients out to agents that were just killing it, right? Like they were going to treat my client like royalty, and that was false. And I would not have known until I was in the group chat, and I'm like, hey man, it's been 2 days. You're not going to respond, So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like being in the know.
Well, it's funny you say that because like I think Shelby, I didn't do that when I referred out to you. I checked in with my buddy all the time, but after it was like literally right after you, I started that trend of being like, hey, just because I saw like somebody was going through and they had like they had gone under contract like 2 or 3 days prior, and I was like, cool, did you pay your EMD? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh God. Okay, put me on a group text like with your agent. Like I want to know like what's this situation. Like I want to know what's happening. And like ever since that, I've been like, yeah, just keep me on that text message so I can see like what they're saying. And it's crazy some of the I hear agents saying like, oh yeah, like I don't really ever need to be at the inspection. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like what's like no, like okay, well, are we going to talk to the inspector afterwards? Like that's fine, but like who's letting them in, and do we get a chance to talk to the inspector afterwards? And like how is that happening? So yeah, just that kind of stuff. Like you said, like you wouldn't even know if you weren't part of that conversation.
I'm curious about, so at this point in your life, like you have built out a ton of different systems. You have checklists, you have virtual assistants in place. You're picking and choosing what to do with your time. You're picking and choosing which clients to work with. So I guess what does like the day in the life look like for you?
Well, it's a little different now. So we do have a couple properties going on. So I would say like just like real general, I maybe spend 2 or 3 hours a day like working. That's really kind of it. Like I'll get up and I hit the gym, I come back and I get my kids, like I'm with my boys in the morning and get them off to school. And then like, that like early part of the day when I'm like really locked in and focused, I've been studying right now for something. So I spend my time studying, and then after the afternoon kind of hits, like you kind of hit that lull a little bit where you're still pretty good. You're not exhausted, right? It's not like that 3 or 4 p.m. That's when like I'll jump in, I'll start doing like all the stuff that doesn't take a ton of brain power, which is my agent stuff, or like the properties that we're renovating, and we manage a homeowners association, so I deal with all that stuff. Somewhere from like noon to 2, noon to 3 at the latest. And then the rest of the day, it's just pursuing my own like pursuits and being with my family and focusing on the stuff, like the things that I love and the things I want to do. I coach at our church, like 2 different sports leagues. I love that kind of stuff. I love giving back. I love helping people. So, that's been amazing to be able to like dictate my own time to the things that I'm passionate and I care about.
You're living the life. You've made it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love it.
Awesome. That's awesome. What does the next year look like for you? Like what excites you the most, or what are you working on next year? And then we'll talk about like the future too, 5-10 years from now.
Sure. So yeah, I'm still loving helping people. I kind of want to I think I might bring on a couple more clients. I kind of scaled that back. I was only maybe helping like 1 or 2 people at most. And then, now that the market's starting to shift a little bit, and because it was so crazy there for a while, people were like, hey, can you please help me buy a house? And I was like, dude, unless you want to pay retail, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just anybody with a brain is not going to, sell you discounted. But, now that it's kind of shifting back, I'm going to do some more work with clients. And then right now I've been currently like studying to go to law school. So that's kind of my big focus right now. So I'm driving.
Cool. That's awesome.
Put a ton of time and effort into that. That's like my big thing right now. So
why law?
That's
honestly, and I know this sounds crazy, it all came from being an agent. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it absolutely is. Like helping clients work through like setting up different entities, just the entire contract portion. Like I love torts and kind of working through all that. And, hey, like all the different like ins and outs and, ways you can violate it and all that stuff. Like I'm just fascinated by. And so I just kind of fell into it, and all the crazy things I've seen, going through all these different businesses with, managing people and evictions and all this stuff. So I have a heart, like I said, to help people. And it's kind of, it really saddens and bothers me. Some of the things that I see and that people can't afford legal representation, who really need it, who get like the short end of the stick. Like I've bought properties before and the previous landlord or owner like really just hosed them, and they're in a really tough spot. And so between that and just helping clients and really loving that area, I just, it's always something I've been, that's interested me. I was a criminal justice major, which is such a fake degree, but that's what I did as like my undergraduate. So then it kind of like, it's just kind of like I said, just built, and then here I am, just started serving for it. And I was like, cool, let's go before I get any older. Like, let's get this thing going so I can, practice law for maybe a decade.
That's awesome. Are you using the GI Bill for that?
Yeah, I am. So.
Oh yeah. Nice. Well, good luck.
I would not go back any other way. There's no way I would pay for law school like myself. It's crazy.
I'm just curious about like your morning routine. Are you one of those people who has like a strict morning or evening? Are you have a lot of structure, or are you free flow in your life?
No, I'm that weirdo that's like, I'm fairly structured in what I do. Like I like to be up early. I feel like that quiet early morning time, you can get a ton done. So I get up.
Same.
Yeah, I'm that weirdo. Like I like to cold plunge as soon as I get up. So like I cold plunge, I immediately get my workout gear in. I don't ever debate with myself if I'm going to like work out. I just go do it immediately and get it done.
I love that.
And then like I said, I come back, and I think it's really important to have some like self-reflection time and have some time with the people you love, whether it's like your pet or if you have people in your house, or if it's not, like just focusing on yourself and like, being spiritual or meditating or whatever, and getting yourself into the zone. And then as soon as that time hits, whatever, for me, it's like 8, like that's where I know I'm like peak performance for the day. And that's where I'm tackling the very hardest thing I have to do for the next 2 hours. Like I'm all into
that. Dude, okay. Questions from that. Totally agree, by the way. You're speaking my language. I love it so much. What workouts do you do? Like, what do you do for the work, gym stuff?
Oh man.
And I don't mean details. I mean, like, are you a weightlifter? Are you a marathoner? Are you a CrossFitter? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So no, I really am. It sounds so stupid, but I really am in that like entire functional piece. So like I have my routine, like every Sunday, it's like an hour and a half, like run or ruck. And like I lift throughout the week. I do martial arts. I do sprints. I swim. I just really feel like you should just like try to be like well-rounded in all areas. I was in some pretty awesome units in the military, and that's what we practice and that's what we live for. And like, I just think it's so stupid to be like super huge and bulky and be like, whoa, I can pick up like 1,000 pounds, but like you can't even run like a mile. Like to me, that's crazy, right? So
right. Or like
try to just, yes, exactly. Or play sports, right? Like pull a hamstring.
Climb a tree.
Throwing a football around with my son and like I hurt myself. Like, no. So huge believer in that. I love it all. And then I think the other important thing that a lot of people miss out on is journaling. I love to journal every day. And I always write down 7 to 8 things I'm grateful for every single day. And then I have 9 goals I write down. And then anything negative that's in my mind, I put it down on paper. And that has been so powerful. I've been doing that for like 6 years. And it's crazy to look back on like the goals I had when I started that seemed so crazy. Now I'm like, oh, that's so trivial. Like we knocked that out in like year 3, right? And so like have those goals be like big and scary, but like and I always write it down like I am this or I've done this, right? Not like, oh, I want to be a good agent. Like that's too fluffy and stupid. Like, no, like I'm an awesome agent who closes like 100 transactions a year, right? Like make it specific to yourself.
Pound it into your brain.
Yes.
Yeah. Convince yourself.
Yeah.
But the part that I want to ask more about is like your life stuff. Like I'm super curious about, were you this way when you were in the military, or was that a part of your initial years as an entrepreneur to try to figure out yourself and get your personal systems unlocked? Like, what did that look like?
So like morning routine, like I think most, have you read like Miracle Morning? Like how
of course I have. Dan
has Shelby
read
Miracle Morning.
Shelby read Miracle Morning.
So I think I think honestly most successful entrepreneurs were just like lifelong learners. We're super curious and fascinated by stuff. I don't think everyone needs to ascribe to that, but I have found it personally like both very fulfilling and truly helps me like lock in on my priorities for the day. Like when I get up and I have, like I said, a set schedule. And I don't know if you guys like the Huberman podcast. I don't know if you're into Andrew Huberman.
I haven't, but that was one of my questions too, is like what podcasts and books are you, but we can get to that, but I'll write that one down. You said Hugh what?
It's called the Huberman, Huberman. He's a Stanford professor. He's absolutely amazing. Like check him out. So he takes like all like, you know, people have all these like crazy conceptions, but he takes like all this like peer reviewed like blue ribbon studies, and he looks at all this data and he's like, hey, like this is trash, this is good. Like here's some tips to like, to recommend to like bring it into your life. So I've learned so much about like, you know, early sunlight, like in your eyes, how it like resets your like circadian rhythm and like helps you like, there's just all these things I didn't know, like you like don't drink coffee like the first 90 minutes of your day. There's all these things that you can like add to your day that will give you more energy, you know, help you fall asleep, sleep better, all this stuff. So anyways, all those things implemented into it, like that's where like the morning comes from. And like I said, if you're not cold plunging, oh my gosh, go cold plunge. It sucks, but awesome.
Dude, that's crazy. My husband did a Wim Hof. They had like a trainer come here to Charlotte, and it was like a 4-hour Wim Hof like training where they did the breathing and the ice bath and the whole thing. So
and sorry, Wim Hof does the breathing, but I'm trying to think of the lady that from like Sweden or whatever that created the whole thing. Anyways, Wim Hof is awesome. So it when you like cold plunge, it floods your not only body with like adrenaline, but dopamine, but it's long lasting dopamine, right? Like they've literally had people that have been like addicted to cocaine come off of cocaine from cold plunging because that dopamine lasts in your brain for like 2 to 3 hours when you cold plunge. And they found it has like this crazy effect on athletes. They did this Virginia Tech, I think it was. They did this whole study on the athletes. They had them like cold plunge before they worked out. And it's amazing, like for your routine. That's why I said like I get up, cold plunge, and then like boom, man, I'm working out. So add that in there. Get your sunlight. Get your 10 minutes outside, like your sunlight, like early morning in your eyes. I try to lay off the caffeine.
Yo, real quick, this podcast is not free. Cost of admission is sharing with a buddy who'd benefit or throwing it on your Instagram story. Tag us. We'll reshare that. Okay, so you mentioned Miracle Morning. What other books would you say were like instrumental in your own development?
I love Gary Keller's The One Thing. Oh my gosh. Like I wish I had followed that. Like I'm such a klutz sometimes to like branch off and do all this other stuff. But when I was like laser focused in, like we made huge, massive gains. Never Split the Difference is a good one by Chris Voss. I know like these are all like kind of staple ones.
That's okay.
The Millionaire Mindset. I think another big one too is really when I shifted to like a growth mentality and like in abundance instead of, because I definitely came from scarcity and I definitely did not have a growth mindset when I started. So some of those books that kind of helped me re-examine and look at the world like in just a different way, like a slightly different way. The Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. That's a good one too. That's really a really good one. Yeah. I like that.
Me up, man. I read it in the Army. I was in the Army when I first was exposed to that, and I was just like, holy man, I'm in the wrong quadrant. I need to change everything right now.
Yep.
Flipping tables.
And it's hard because you can't like people who are there, like you can't explain to them, you know, they're like, well, I don't want to be here and I don't want to work a job. And you're like, well, then dude, I don't know what to tell you. There's only one way out. And what you're doing is not the way. Like, that's it, you know? So I love those books. And then just for people like, another great one, How to Read a Book. It's a really, really old one. It was published in like 1941, but there's just so many people like they read and they're not right. A book should be more than just like, oh, let me read and get a couple like little bits of information. You should be engaging with whatever you're reading. In your mind, you should be like formulating, like asking questions and being like, what is the author trying to tell me? Why is this being brought up? Right? Like almost like it's a lecture. And I think too many people just like passively read and they don't really comprehend like what is being added to them. So if you've never read How to Read a Book, read How to Read a Book. It's awesome. It's a great one. You can get it on Amazon for like $1 or $2, or I think it's free on like like Kindle Unlimited or whatever. So go get that book, read that book. That's a great one too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's because I agree with like the people don't read a lot of times right now. It's just like I read 50 books this year. Like, it's just like a gold star competition that they want to say that they've read, as opposed to, like you said, like understanding. But I feel like it's the implementation piece that so many people are missing, where it's like, yeah, you've read 50 books, even 10 books this year, but what did you implement into your business or life? So that's the piece I feel like you probably did really well, is that you read the book and you immediately did it.
Yeah.
Knowing you for an hour.
No, such a great point. Like it's true. Like take action, like figure out how, like you said, how to put that into practice. And then two, like use like your time. Like if I'm driving in a car, like it's crazy to me, like agents that are like new. They're like, oh, like I want to learn this. I don't understand this. I'm like, okay, so like when you're driving in your car, like, are you listening to podcasts by other killer agents and like getting tips and tricks? Like if you're going to go for a run or whatever, like, are you leveraging all these different ways when you are literally like, you have time to listen and comprehend? Like, are you taking advantage of that? And so many people aren't. Like, they're just lazy, right? And then they don't understand like why they're not getting ahead. Like, why aren't they learning things? We all know this. There's just, insane amount of information and great tips and tricks and everything out there, like at our disposal. Like our parents, like people 20 years ago never had. Like take advantage of that. Like tap into all this information and use it to change your life.
Totally.
I love it. I marked
another
that
question
as a potential clip.
Unless Ali. Good. Love it. Okay, so this is a question that I've never asked before either. It is on our list, but I've never asked it. So you mentioned before how you went from scarcity mindset into like this place of abundance, and I'm sure there was a transformation there mentally. So my question is, how is your headspace now? Like, do you have like positive thoughts? Or are you combating like negative emotions constantly, or has there been a transformation? What does like headspace look like for you?
Yeah, so it's really funny now. I used to be so critical on myself all the time. Oh, you messed this up. You're so stupid. How could you do that? Like you practiced and you prepped and you prepped. And now it's really like eye-opening. I just caught myself the other day. I was talking to somebody about going to law school, and I was like, oh yeah, even though I'm so old. And I was like, why would you say that? Like, you're not that old. Like, you're very intelligent. Like, why are you saying these negative things? Because I don't talk to myself that way anymore. So yeah, no, it has been a complete like 180 of how I look at things. It used to be a failure was I suck, I'm stupid, I messed up. Now I'm like, oh man, that sucked. All right, cool. Well, we learned from that. We're not going to do that again. What can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? What did we learn? Okay, awesome. Well, happens. Let's just keep rolling. Because this one thing went bad, but like these other 3 awesome things just happened and we're killing it in X, Y, and Z. So why are you going to be down on yourself? And for me, when I made that like mental pivot, man, everything started to click.
How did you do it?
What do you attribute that to?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could be like, well, I was walking down the street and like a coconut hit me on the head. Like there's not like, it was just a slow, systematic thing, right? Where, like I said, I came from constantly being like, and I'm an overachiever, right? I think I got that way because I had so much negative self-talk in my head. Where it's like, you got to do better, you got to work harder, you got to work harder. And then as I just slowly started to like stack up the wins, and I started reading books and like listening to other people, and I just slowly started to like have that conversation with myself, being like, well, why are you talking to yourself this way? Like, why? Like step back and like, if you were like a third person viewing yourself, like, why would you think because you messed that up, that personally makes you a failure? Like you don't treat your employees that way. Like it's totally fine if one of your employees makes a mistake. That's part of the learning process. Like, why are you doing that to yourself? And I do think being a parent and being a boss, really a boss, whatever, right? Being the employee,
a leader.
Employee. Yeah, exactly. It helped. Well, even as a leader, I don't think I was ever tough on my guys, but I never really looked at it that way, because of what we did. There was so much, it was so high pressure and such quick reactions you had to make right at that time. Like, okay, did you take the shot? Did you not take the shot? Whatever. blah, blah, blah. But it's much different when we're doing real estate. You have time to like review your contracts. You know, like it is not life and death. Like no one's going to die. So when you have the ability to step back and then like look at these things and you're like, well, okay, they made a mistake and you weren't that hard on them. So why are you doing this to yourself? It just slowly started to turn. And then, like I said, I just started like, you know, being kind to myself and catching myself and being like, no, like, okay, you messed up. It's totally fine. Like, let's not do it again. Let's figure out how to change this. That happens to everybody. You know, you're having a bad day. You didn't sleep a lot. Like, let's not make excuses, but let's also not like beat ourselves up and be like, you're a failure because you made a mistake. You're not. So like I said, it just slowly turned.
Totally.
And then, yeah, and it's such a better way to live your life. So anybody out there that you're beating yourself up all the time, like please stop it. It's not worth it. Life's short, man. Love yourself. Be hard on yourself. Push yourself. That's not what I'm saying. You know, you always should be striving to be better. But there's no reason to equate mistakes and failure to like you personally suck at anything because you don't.
Dude, I love that. Have you read The Untethered Soul?
No, I haven't.
It's similar concept. They talk about how that voice in your head, just imagine them as your roommate, and would you ever tolerate that behavior from a roommate? But instead, it's your own voice just being a total to yourself all the time. So if you separate it and know that it's like not you, and that you can tell them to stop, and you know, work on that behavior. That I thought that was a really cool way to think about it. That book was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never heard that. I love that. The mind is so fascinating. Like, I don't know if either one of you meditate, and not so much for like relaxation. Yes, but like, isn't it insane? Like our brains are so amazing. Like that they right. Like you're in the shower or you're driving and your mind's working out 6 different things. Right. Like, what are we having for dinner? I got to call this person. I have to send this contract. I need to do this. I have inspections. That's awesome. But you know, one of the benefits I've seen from meditating is like you get to literally like examine how sporadic and insane your brain can be. It's shooting off into 6 different directions. And when you need to focus, you know, and really zero in on something that's important, it's really awesome to try to, you know, just like working out, right? When you do it, your mind gets better at like that focusing for a short period of time when you need to focus.
How long and how often do you meditate?
Oh, not enough. Like 10 minutes a day. Sometimes I'm great. I'll do 3 or 4 days in a row, and then like I'll miss a day. You know, I don't beat myself up about it. I try to. If I've got something big, I know that's coming up where I really need to be like locked in. I make that time beforehand to like take. You guys know like that breathing technique where you're like 4 seconds in, pause for 4, out for 4, pause. Right, like the SEALs do that. Like they do that for like
the box.
Yeah, so that like. Yeah, so that's really great at like bringing your body down to like baseline, like physically, and then so do that for a little bit, and then I'll meditate for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then like I come out of that feeling like really just calm, at peace, and then like ready to like go in and do like whatever thing, like where I have to perform, or you know, take a test or whatever that thing is. Like, okay, hey, I'm ready to go. Like, let's, you know, it's on, but I don't want to come in amped up, you know, and be like, let's kill it. You know, it's like that's how you make mistakes.
Okay, this is my last question. Allie, if you have more, then we can totally do more. But I think my last question.
More. But go ahead.
Okay, great. So motivation. So it's hard to be 100% all the time. It's impossible, possibly. So how much has your motivation absolutely roller coastered? And what is how do you maintain the right balance? Or I guess talk to me about motivation, what your experiences and current state are.
Okay, so about 3 months ago, I had this massive shift from being like trying to stay motivated and like goals and all this to just literally being like, shut up and do it. Like, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you feel motivated to do it or not. I don't care if you're cold. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care what it is. Just, I literally tell myself like, shut up and do it. And then I just go do it. And I know that sounds like so trivial and stupid, but it has been such a game changer because there was so many times I would just talk myself out of just simple shit, right? Like hey, I don't want to go in this cold water right now because I'm really tired and the sun's not up and it's going to suck. So then I just wouldn't do it, right? And then I feel off for the whole day. Or like, I'm not going to do this because I don't, I just don't feel like it right now. I'm going to put it off till tomorrow. And like, it has been so massive to just get to the point where I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I hear you. You don't want to do this. Okay, shut up and we're going to do it. And then once you get going, like 5 minutes in, like, it's not a big deal. It's just that initial, like getting over the threshold
it's
and
the start.
getting started. Yep. And that's it, man. And I just try to live everything I do in my life now with that, like whatever it is. Like even, and I know this sounds like crazy, right? But like sometimes I'm exhausted. I don't want to sit down and read to my sons for 20 minutes. But that's such a crucial part of my day. And so I'm just like, shut up. Like this is your time to like go read. It doesn't matter you're tired, like go read. And then that will be the best part of my day. And so I used to miss out on things like that, right? Because I was just like being weak-minded.
A little.
Yeah, exactly. I was not a little. I was being a huge, right? So, and like I said, it's just been awesome to adopt that across the board on everything. So I don't give myself that luxury to like waver anymore. It's just like, no, we already said we're going to do this today. So shut up, we're going to go do it. And then that's it. I'm just going to do it, man.
I'm pumped. I'm going to go shut up and do it right after this.
It's awesome.
Okay, Allie, you're up.
So it seems like you really focus on your self-development on either on your way out of the military or like once you were already out. I pretty much was the same way, I think, on my end too, where I was talking to a lot of military people, like as I was already starting to focus inward more and like really just try to be the best that I could be. And I found myself surrounded by people that were not the same way, even though, you know, they might have like huge muscles, they're working out, like their physique is just perfect, but on the inside, they're not looking to develop themselves any further. And I felt like I had a lot of like difficult conversations during that time, especially on my way out, sometimes with leadership, where I had to explain that I was not going to stay in, that my goal was not to become colonel. So can you talk to us about like how those conversations, if it was ever like an issue with you, but like when you started realizing that you wanted to work on yourself and how that doesn't always, the military community doesn't always reflect that or even really attribute, like want people to look inward. That sounds really negative, but it's all about like Red Bulls and hitting the gym as opposed to meditation, like they're not about to meditate, So just talk a little bit about that.
Well, so I was an infantry officer, and then I spent some time in some other units. So there was not a lot of lovey-dovey, like, hey, let's talk about our feelings kind of a thing. And I think that culture has shifted. So I never had those conversations on the way out. And I think I did it totally the wrong way. Like I came out, I would say I kind of felt lost and lonely. Like I was missing that like sense of like community and camaraderie that you have in the military. And so I really threw myself into like work and my family. And then I kind of did this like strategic drawback where I kind of scaled back and realized like, hey, I can make just as much money without doing all this work and going in a million directions. This has kind of been my time, kind of metaphorically and figuratively, like in the desert, right? Where I have really like focused on, like you said, like myself and like examining my thoughts, my feelings. What are my motivating factors in life? Like, what is my purpose? And I just think that that's so healthy. I wouldn't say like, hey, you need to draw back, but that's something that like you said, so few veterans do. And they just are like, oh, that's stupid. That's dumb. And it's like the most successful people I know, or I should say the people I feel are the most successful, are emotionally very grounded. And they're very good at like having self-actualization and understanding like what is going on in themselves. So then they understand, how can I change myself for the better? And I feel like if that's not one of your goals, what is the whole purpose of this thing in life, right? If you're not like living for your family and something bigger to give back and to trying to be the very best version of yourself, like what the are you doing on this earth? Like, are you just getting up to like drink and have a good time? Like how shallow and pointless is that? Exactly. And that's not what I want. Like I want to, I want to hopefully put more into this world than I took out when I leave it.
Dude, I'm so pumped right now.
Love that.
This is like, this is everything. I love it. But Yeah, that's all. I have questions. Allie, do you have any more questions?
That's it.
That's it. Do you have any questions for us?
No, you guys were awesome.
No,
I know
you're
I
like-
like talked and talked and talked. I hope you guys cut a lot of my blabbering out, but you guys were phenomenal. This is like the 4th podcast I've done. This has been my favorite one, like hands down. You guys were fantastic. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Can you
My
tell
heart.
us why? What about it?
Oh yeah,
Makes it your
our
favorite?
dashing personalities.
No, I love the way the format was. You two play off each other like really well. I thought the questions were great, and I love that we can have just like a candid conversation. I feel like sometimes it's very like scripted, very much like, oh, you're kicking ass, take names, bro. Let's go. Like tell other people they're. And it's like, well, it's a little more nuanced than like just that, right? Like, let's talk about how we can help and build other people up. But let's talk about like holistically, like how do we all get to that place that we want to be? Because there's more than just like going out and grinding every day. Like, how do you make that sustainable? How do you grind 16 hours a day without like destroying your marriage or ruining your relationship with like your kids or whatever? Like, there's a lot of things that go into that. So I just kind of love that this was like very all encompassing, but still very much so focused on like what your main topic was. So.
Love it.
Cool.
My heart.
Real quick, if you're listening to this on Apple, Apple does not make it easy to leave us a rating. So I'm going to break this down for you. In the search tab, type in the Be More Show for Agents. Click on the thumbnail. Then click that middle tab that says reviews and click write a review. Tap on those 5 stars, of course. Let us know how awesome this show is and how it's helped you. And if that's too much for you, I understand and just switch to Spotify already. Thank you so much and back to the show.
Go on,
What
Allie.
does the overall end state look like for you? 5, 10, 30 years from now? What is your end goal?
I will never stop working. I love it. I love real estate. I'm always going to be in it, but I want my focus to be at that point on, my youngest is 6.5. So, right. Like looking like 10, 11 years out, like he's finishing up, my oldest is done. And then it's like, okay, hey, like as a family, like we're really, really close and we love our family. We love our friends. And like, I want to like work with my sons or help guide them to whatever they're going to go. And just we kind of already have the empire where we want to. So at that point, just add a little more pieces. But I really just want to be doing things that I love that give back and help people at that point. Like I said, that's the whole point of becoming a lawyer. And so I can do that things and to help people and just really, because I just feel so grateful that so many like wonderful people have been in my life and have guided me and have shown me, and I've had all these opportunities. Yes, a lot of them I had to earn through a lot of hard work and whatnot, but I just feel very, very blessed. I just truly want to like help others and give back and share what I can to try to help motivate people or just help them out if they're in a bad spot.
Super curious about what your thoughts are about passing down your empire or versus giving your empire, or say donating your empire and saying, hey, the hard work is what made me. So I'm sorry, but you have to go make it yourself for your kids. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, this is such a struggle, right? Because like I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't have to struggle, and I didn't come from anything. My parents didn't have money. I had everything I had in life. I had a work or ROTC scholarship or blah blah blah, right? So I can tell you for a fact, my wife and I are like, hey, we love you, but screw you. Like this is ours until we're both dead. What we do at that point, I think, is going to be solely dependent on what kind of men they've grown into. Like, what are they doing with their life? Are they giving back to society? Are they caring for their family? And I hate to say like, hey, we're going to attach strings to it, but we want it to do the most good that we can with it. And so I don't know what that looks like yet. And we keep reassessing that. My wife and I sit down once a year. And we always look out the next year. We talk about these things like kind of long term. Right now, everything's in a living trust. So if we both get hit by a bus, we know who it's going to. It's already structured. It's there to provide for them. And then, they have access to it when they're 40 years old. But like I said, once they become adults, I don't know. We're going to have to relook at that piece.
Dang. Thanks for sharing that. This is the first time I think that we've spoken about like inheritance or whether you're going to pass anything on. So I like that we touched on that.
It's not even on our list. Like we have a list of questions and it's like not at all on there. So thank you for being open to that, because I'm super curious. It's also like a very interesting reaction when a lot of people are like strongly like, I'm doing all of this to give it away to my children. And then there's the other people who are like, you don't get man, like good luck. So it's very fascinating. And especially since it's clear that you've done a lot of work on yourself. You've read a lot, you've reflected a lot, and you've built a lot of your own personal systems to be highly efficient and effective. So that's why I was so curious to ask you.
Yeah.
Allie, I know you got a question. or go.
Well, hold on. I was just going to jump in real fast and say, it is hard because I love them more than anything, but I'm sure like you two, everything you have in life has come about because you've outworked most people. Like that's it. Like you've learned there's no shortcuts in life. And
Totally.
so, that's my biggest fear is like you see, I don't know if you guys have read anything, but like, it's crazy to see these ultra wealthy people and like what happens to their kids when they don't have to work for anything. So it's like on the one hand, you want to give them everything. You want to give them this amazing, safe life. But then the other hand, you don't want to like spoil them and they have no work ethic and they don't know what it's like to like toil and like, and they're pretentious, like, so it's this horrible like thing. It's not horrible, but it, first world problems, but like, it really is something that like you wrestle with and you're like, what's the best way to do this?
What would you say is your favorite app or tool that you use, either in business or just for life in general?
I would say in business, like I said, you got it. Google Drive on my phone has saved me a million times over. Makes so many things easy, just, oh yeah, let me pull up that information or let me send you this doc. And then I also love just having like the Dotloop app on my phone, because you can just be in and out anywhere. Oh, you didn't get this? Cool. Let me resend this to you real fast. The Dotloop app.
Oh,
because you can sign in there. Yeah, you can sign in there. You can send it. You can like be out, whatever with your friends, family. Oh, I miss this. Cool. Let me blast it over to you. And I can go back to like having my evening out and fun with the people I care about and not worrying about like, hey, this, thing I got to knock out. None of those are sexy and crazy and like obscure, but man, sometimes
doesn't
just, like,
have to be.
Stuff, no, it works. It gets the job done.
Hey, what events are you going to this year? If you're going to any events?
I am not. I am going to be buried in studying until the middle of September. And then after that, we are actually moving to homeschooling this year. So
nice.
my wife and I are going to have our hands full with that. And we love to travel. We're that family that's traveling all the time. So until, we got a cruise at the end of December and a bunch of like camping and travel trips like in September, October. So like that part of my year is booked out, but next year I'll get back in and start getting to conferences and stuff.
Are there any ones you normally go to for next year?
So I was supposed to go to the Bigger Pockets one last year and I sold my ticket. So I'll probably get back on that one. I love like, that's when like Dave came down here to Phoenix. There's a couple big ones down here in Phoenix that you can always get on and go to. So that's always cool. So I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, the law school thing is driving a lot of stuff right now. And if that's going to become the new focus and like, that's where I'm going to spend my time and energy on because I got most of this stuff kind of already figured out.
How can we help you in your business? Especially me being like in Tucson, I'm just down the road from you. We're super close. I didn't realize that you were in Phoenix, so that's awesome. How can we help you in your business?
Love to network with other agents. It's awesome the things you like learn from other people in different markets. Like, hey, what are you doing? What tools are you using? And then, like I said, like I'm always looking to know agents, especially around military bases, because I always know somebody that's like buying, selling, moving, whatever, and they're always looking for a great agent. I only have like 6 different people. Shelby's got, Bragg on lockdown, that I can reach out to and be like, hey, can you please help this person? So if you're out there and you're around a military base, please let me know. That would be awesome. So I can, vet you and send my friends to you.
Perfect. Okay, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or hit you up to connect?
Bigger Pockets is like the best thing. If you're on there and you've got questions or you want to repost, like I'm about to put up a whole big thing. One of our clients' house like burned over $200,000 worth of fire damage. So I'm about to like post photos and a whole write up on that, like how we are helping them work through that. So if you've got questions on that stuff, and that stuff is pertinent as an agent because if you have to sell one of those things, a lot of agents don't know how to handle that stuff. So like I said, hit me up on there. I've got a couple good things I put on there. I also wrote about where I did a 32 unit acquisition. And that was kind of a crazy one because most agents haven't ever handled anything more than like one, house at a time. So yeah, that was a whole different ballgame, trying to buy 32 units with 3 different buyers all at one time.
That's awesome. Cool. So, and if you want to reach out to either me or Shelby, we are Allie the Agent and the Shelby Show _ on the gram. So hit us up over there. And so that's it. Thank you so much, Dan, for telling us your secrets, what's worked for you. It was awesome getting to know you as far as a person, an agent, all the businesses that you own. So we wish you the most success. You know what to do.
Be a bro and share the show. Thanks for listening, dude. If you want the golden nugget that this guest provided, see the show notes or just go straight to theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we keep the resources for you. Till next time.